Okay, I have to sit at an angle to do this because everything hurts. I've had a really nice weekend, but I was on my feet for a lot of it, so I'm sort of have to sit at an angle. Otherwise, it hurts. So yeah. Now I was going to do a whole thing on the Online Safety Act, but me and my son, we had this insane conversation, and over the weekend it came up as well, about the fact that here in England we had one of the longest wars and one of the shortest wars ever to kind of happen. And so I thought, why not? It was funny. I mean, it was really, really funny. So funny. The fact that we can have a war without having a war, which is basically what we did. We had a war without actually having a war. We needed a peace treaty, but we never actually had a war that actually happened. But it lasted for years. It lasted for 335 years, 2 weeks and 4 days. But there was no actual war that occurred. But we still needed a treaty to actually end it. Okay, so during the English Civil War, right, in 1651, right, there was a war was declared, right? I'll go into detail in a minute, but a war was declared, right? And it didn't actually end officially till 1986, making it one of the longest wars ever, and one of the most unusual because not only was there no bloodshed, not one single shot was fired, not one. There was no military, no shots, no nothing. Yeah. Right. Okay. So we're in the middle of the English Civil War, right? So we've got to 1651, right? And the Royalists are losing this war. Now, we all know that the Royalists lost this war anyway. Charles lost his head, right? But the Royalists are losing ground. The Parliamentarians are winning. So, and one thing I never knew is that the Dutch had a big hand in this. I didn't actually know that. And they were big parliamentarians. So they were massive fans of the Parliament. And so when the Royalists start losing ground, what they did is they retreated to the Isle of Scilly. Sicily. It's spelled Scilly. Sicily. I'm going to call it Sicily because I don't know how else to pronounce it. But it's spelled Scilly. It's just off the coast of England. Okay, literally just off the coast of England, right? Off the Cornish coast, so it's right at the bottom. So it's just off the coast of England, right? Off the west coast, so right by sort of just off the coast down by Cornwall. Now, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to call it Sicily because I don't know how else to pronounce it. But it's Scilly. That is how it's spelled, and I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm going to call it the Isle of Sicily because I don't know how else to pronounce it. Okay, now so the Royalists are losing ground and they don't know what else to do, so they run off to the Isle of Sicily, and it becomes a naval base for them, which is not surprising because it's a tiny little island and it's surrounded by sea. Okay, and the Dutch, who are massive parliamentarians, see this as a massive betrayal. I don't quite know why. I tried to find out, but I couldn't find it. So, the Dutch being the Dutch, we get this Dutch Admiral Martin Tromp, T-R-O-M-P, Tromp. He decides to declare war on the Isle of Sicily. Right, so in 1951, he declared war on the Isle of Sicily. And from that moment on, there was never a peace treaty. So when the war ended, the Civil War ended and the parliamentarians won, no peace treaty ever was signed between the Dutch and that isle. None. right? So from that moment on, a theoretical war existed between the Dutch and the Isle of Sicily. There was never a shot fired. There was never any military presence. Nothing happened on that isle for 335 years, right? Until one day in 1986, a historian comes across the documents that state that a war had been declared on that isle. He lives on the isle, by the way, right? And contacts the Dutch embassy on the Isle of Sicily. And what happens then is they go through all the records, and then the Dutch embassy draws up a peace treaty, and the local council signs it. A man from the local council signs this peace treaty to officially end this theoretical war that has been going on for 335 years, 2 weeks and 4 days. It officially started on the 30th of March 1651 and officially ended on the 17th of April 1986. And the commanders on both sides, they actually had a commander each on both sides. On the Dutch side, we know, is Martin Tromp. And on the Isle of Sicily side was John Granville. And it is officially on record to state there were no casualties and no losses. Nobody lost any men, no casualties, no nothing. There was nothing. This war, there was a theoretical war going on between the Isle of Sicily and the Dutch for 334 years, 2 weeks and 4 days. That is not something I'm ever going to forget. It's going to be insane. But how the hell do you have a war without a war? Because that's exactly what it was. We Brits had a theoretical war for 335 years, 2 weeks and 4 days with the Dutch. But you know what we also did? We also had one of the shortest wars in history. Yeah, we also found that quite amusing as well. And I really need to slow down. And that was the English Zanzibar War. Now, there were probably a lot more people that have heard about this war than they had the 335-year, 2 weeks and 4 days war. But the English Zanzibar War that actually took place on the 27th of August 1896, that lasted between 38 and 44 minutes or something. Lasted about 46, I reckon it lasted like 46 minutes, right? Or 44 minutes, okay? And so it lasted about 44 minutes, I think. Between 38 and 44 minutes, this war actually lasted, okay? Officially in record is what it states, because I looked it all up. In record, it states that it lasted officially between 38 and 44 minutes. Okay? And it all starts because of a suspicious death of the pro-British Sultan Hamid. Now, I can't pronounce these names because I don't know how to. So if I pronounce them wrong, I'm really, really sorry. But it's Hamid bin Thruwaini, or Thuwaini. Okay, that's how you spell his name. And he died on the 25th of August 1896. Okay, so they class his death as suspicious. Okay, and he was pro-British. Now in 1890, between the Brits and Zanzibar, there was this agreement laid out saying that they will need British permission to put a sultan on the throne. Okay, so without the Brits' permission, no sultan can be on the throne. You need their permission, basically. Together they will go, yes, we can have that one, but you can't have that one. Without the Brits say so, you cannot have a sultan on the throne. That sultan has to be pro-Brits at that point in time. That was the law. They signed an agreement stating that they agreed to have a pro-British sultan on their throne. Okay, at that point in time. They made that agreement in 1890. So we're now in 1896, and there was a suspicious death of a pro-British sultan on the 25th of August 1896. Right now, with this concept that in 1890 the Zanzibar had made this agreement that the Brits were influential in who they allow on their throne. So without the Brits' permission, no sultan was allowed to take control of Zanzibar. That's the law. You Brits, right, we are not allowed a sultan without Brits' permission. So the sultan has to be pro-British, has to be. But what happened is that after this sultan, Hamoud bin Thuwain, died, the succession, there were two up for succession. One of them was pro-British and one of them was not. But what happened was the one that was not pro-British went, I don't care about the law, I'm going to take control anyway. And his name was Khalid bin Burgash. Burghash. Burgash. Burgash, okay? And the Brits, who went, no, you can't go on the throne, you're not pro-Brit. Okay, the one that we want on the throne is Hamoud bin Muhammad, right? Okay, so take in mind that in 1890, the law stated that to have the Sultan, they have to be pro-British. So Khalid was not allowed to have any succession to the throne. So he took over anyway. So we Brits, we gave him an ultimatum. Hand over the throne to Hamoud or we will attack. Plain and simple. Khalid went, I don't care. And what he did is he ordered all his men to protect him in this palace, brought in a whole load of people and barricaded himself inside the palace. And at 9 a.m. the next day, the ultimatum expired. So on the 26th or 27th, the ultimatum expired. So at 9:02, by 9:00, no, so we gave him an ultimatum at 9 a.m. on the 26th of August. That ultimatum had expired, and by this time the Brits had gathered a whole load of military equipment, both land equipment and naval equipment. And not only that, but we'd gathered a load of men. So we had a Navy commander, a Rear Admiral Harry Rawson, up here by the docks, and then we had Brigadier General Lloyd Matthews, you know, with the palace, and a whole load of men and a whole load of equipment. And I shouldn't do that. And also, the Khalid had gathered a whole load of forces too. There were 2,800 Zanzibars, people, you know, not just palace guards, but like general population protecting the palace at this point. So he'd gathered a whole load of people, and there were also a whole load of people protecting the boat, like the navy yard, like the boats and stuff as well. So at 9:02, so now we've got a whole load of armies, like navy and army people, like everywhere with lots of weapons. And at 9:02, we Brits fire our first shot into the palace, and we set the palace on fire. And at the same time, the Navy, we fire a shot into the Zanzibar Royal Yacht, the HHS Glasgow, and two little small vessels as well, and we sink them at the same time. So at 9:02, we have 2 shots fired, or 3 shot fires, and we sink the Royal Yacht and 2 small vessels, and at the same time, we set the palace on fire. We start, and then the bombardment just continues. We don't stop. There's a whole load of fighting going on down by the docks. Loads of people are getting involved. And we are bombarding the palace until 9:46, when the palace flag was shot down, and then there was a ceasefire. 9:46, there was a ceasefire. That was it. Khalid sought asylum, ran. He left. He just ran for it, and he sought asylum over in the German consulate. And we Brits, we placed Muhammad as Sultan, and that was it. It was over. He ran. He sought asylum with the German consulate, and we placed Muhammad up as Sultan, and that was it. It was over. And there were 500 Zanzibar people either killed or injured, and one Brit, and one injured Brit. In all of that, 500 Zanzibar people were either killed or injured, and one British person injured. British person. Between 38 and 44 minutes of bombardments, one British person was injured. 500 Zanzibars were either killed or injured. And Khalid fled. He just fled to the German consulate. And we got what we wanted anyway. And we got Mohammed on the throne. We got Hamid bin Mohammed on the throne as Sultan. And at that point, after that, there was this heavy reign of British. There was a heavy British sort of reign after that in Zanzibar. But yeah, we did find it rather fascinating that here in England we've had not only the longest sort of anti-war going on, sort of anti-war, it's like theoretical war going on, and then the shortest war. And it's like, no, that's just insane. Never seen anything like it. What on earth? And we thought we Brits couldn't get any crazier. We actually can. We actually fought a theoretical war for 335 years, 2 weeks and 4 days. I mean, seriously, who the hell fights a theatre? Seriously, that's insane. I'll never forget that. We fought a theoretical war for 335 years, 2 weeks and 4 days. I will never forget that. Anyway, I'm going to go because I really need to lay down. I'll see you later. Bye bye.